right, so today we're going to be starting our second moose Euro project for the season here. A guy got this thing a few years ago and it's been just sitting in his shed. He actually cleaned it up quite well before he put it away, so there's not a lot of flesh on it, but there's all that remnants of sinew and things like that. So first thing we're going to do is rehydrate it and see where we're at. Sometimes if you let these things dry out, you can get the fat suck up into the bone and it really stains the bone bad. But you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. This is a pretty special moose for this guy. So let's go ahead and get this thing in the water. Alright, I just wanted to show you guys this moose before we got going. So even though this probably isn't the most giant moose that you've ever seen, this is actually Newfoundland bulls. This is, I'm going to say, pretty typical, probably better than average when you get out there, but it's still quite wide. I bet you he is, well, that door is 48 inches, so I bet you he's a solid 40 inches wide or more. It's a nice looking moose. This will be a really good looking Euro mount when it's done. Sorry for the lighting, but best I can do with what I got right now. But as you guys can see, there's all these little, the membranes are all on here. But he did do quite a good job of cleaning up the flesh before put it to storage. So I'm actually thinking this will still take a bit of time to get cleaned up, but the process will be much quicker, I think. So anyways, there she is. I'm gonna put it in the water and we'll check back on it soon here. All right, I just finished getting this blue bin kind of made up for this moose. On these smaller moose, you can get them laying flat in these blue bins for the soak. That's the optimal way to do it. On this other one I'm doing for myself, it's a way bigger moose. That's as low as that thing will lay down in the same size blue bin. So whenever you can get them to lay completely flat like that, that's the best. And then we'll wrap the top of the cloth so it'll wick over without submerging the bases of this thing. And yeah, we'll go from there. But this one they brought in, it was cleaned up pretty good in the field, so we'll just get this thing soaking. Alright, just a quick update on this 5-year-old moose in the shed. We're early summer now. I just changed the water out today. You can see it is significantly cleaner. It's even starting to lighten up a bit from the degreasing. It's still got some dark spots, but not bad. The one thing I did screw up on, I previously had used the power washer to try to get some of the stuff on the top of the skull, and I did damage these nasal bones there, which I was really angry at myself for doing. But this thing's come in really clean. I didn't know how it was going to work out, to be honest with you. But see on the back side, still have a little bit around here. Now if this had been fresh, that would all be probably gone by now. But when I changed the water, I just sprayed this off with the garden hose, no pressure washer or anything. So I think this guy, about 2 more weeks in the soak, and we'll be ready to start putting our degreasing solution and the borax and Dawn dish soap and all the rest of it in there. But really pleased with how this is coming along. I'll put the claws back over top. It's really important when you're doing it like this to have those cloths covering this part that's out of the water, because they do wick up some of the grease that comes out of the skull, so it doesn't stain it. So anyways, we'll check back in a couple weeks here. So the cleaning process here is complete. Now this was the skull that had been neglected for about 5 years in the shed. See, it's got staining on it. We haven't started degreasing yet, so there's still a chance we can get that lighter before we go to a peroxide. But it's totally clean now. Here is the underside. It's all the flesh and tissue is gone. There's just a little stringy thing there, but that'll come off. We're ready for degreasing though. Everything is done. Now, look, some of these little more delicate places didn't survive. Moose have a couple of these spots that are really hard to keep intact. But this one, is just thrown around in a shed. So it has a little bit of damage. Those are thinner areas too, typically. But what I'll do is I'll take a Dremel and clean that up just so it looks a little neater. But yeah, we're going to put this into the soap water now, and should be good to sit for a couple weeks. Okay guys, time to start the degreasing process. I'm going to start with the borax. This will help take off any loose bits of flesh there might be. There's no set amount. I usually just get a bit in there. There we go. Just have to get the tab in the right way. And that'll help take off any bits of flesh. Next secret ingredient. Dawn, use the clear stuff. I don't know if the blue and green and all those other colors will cause any kind of staining, but the clear is your best bet. And I usually just put it on the top. Specifically if there's any kind of spots that I think might need a bit more, put it on there directly, but this one we're going to have to do a bit of a soak to get this one. That is a ton of soap. We'll fill this thing up here. Okay, so how I like to start this, like to do the shower piece, just to kind of get things mixed up to start. Get the top nice and moist. Then we'll, once we get going here, we'll just flip it over to the regular old soaker. I just covered it back up with the cloths. You can use the same cloths that you used to rot this out in. Just what I do is I pressure wash them out just to clean them up a bit, and then put them over the skull, and the soap will suck through there, and the cloths really help pull the grease out of the skull and into those cloths. So it's a really good method. I've done this several times. It works excellent with no grease staining on the forehead on the skulls. So anyways, now we wait. The day's finally arrived. We're done degreasing our moose that's been sitting in the shed for 5 years. Let's go ahead and take a look at it now. I've drained the water out the other day, and I've just been letting this skull dry, so let's go take a look at it. Okay, here is the moose. This has turned out really well. If you guys remember at the beginning of the video how dark this was, a lot of that deep staining actually came out. I was surprised. Sometimes it doesn't. This one seemed to clean up pretty well. And just look real close here. It's a little bit darker here, a little bit darker around the bases, but overall quite a good result compared to what we started with. The old tissue that was left on it actually shrunk and cracked those nasal bones, so when they rotted off, they kind of are very crumbly and cracked and chipped out. So I talked to the guy that actually owns this moose, and he was fine with taking them out, and he actually quite likes the way this looks. And for those of you that follow White Bone Creations, this is what he does on all of his. He doesn't try to save the nasal scrolls, he just pressure washes them out anyway. So this is a pretty common practice. I would have preferred to keep the nasal scrolls, but you know, you only do so much. This is going to look great for this guy. This is moose from Newfoundland, and it's the last one he took before he moved out west. And it's quite a nice little bull, I'd guess around 40 inches or so. I've never ever put a tape to it, but very nice little bull that he got before leaving home. And they wanted it Euroed, and hopefully he's going to be happy with it. I showed him some pictures of it ahead of time, and he seemed to like it. So anyway, I'm going to be taking that and putting it back in here, and we're just going to pour the peroxide over it, and we'll see how that's done. Alright, so this is just the bin that we were degreasing things in. Right, this is just regular old 3% peroxide. What I usually do, I'll just pour it in kind of these areas that can hide the heebie-jeebies, but like I said, these don't stink at all, but I just find it as kind of more of a best practice. And this 3% peroxide also isn't enough to actually do any real bleaching or whitening of the bone. You really need like a 40% peroxide to do that. This is just more for the smell, if there is any, or if there's any bacteria, if you want to kill it. And this will inadvertently whiten things slightly, possibly, but not really. Try not to get any on your skin or the antler itself if you can avoid it. This peroxide, this 3% stuff's just cheap too, so I don't mind wasting a little bit of it either. Like I said, this is just in case you missed anything, but for the most part it should just be a precautionary thing versus necessity. Okay, I just took the hose and rinsed off the peroxide so it wouldn't be sitting on there. Just let this dry out again overnight. Yeah, it wasn't a whole lot of fizzing, so I know all the organics are off. It doesn't stink whatsoever anyway. So after this dries, the next thing I'm going to do is get the 40% peroxide, and we're going to put that on a couple of these little darker spots here just to even the color out, lighten it up, and kind of give it an overall uniform color. And the guy that this moose belongs to didn't want a bright white shiny skull. He wanted more of a natural bone color. So I'm just going to touch up those darker spots, like I said, to even the color out a little bit, and let it sit there for a little while. It doesn't take very long to actually whiten up the stuff a fair amount, and then once the color's kind of evened out, I'll go and rinse it off again. And then after that, it'll just be doing a couple touch-ups on the antlers. If you can see here, it's this end point. It's from grinding in the shed or whatever. He had it before. Some of these tips were rubbed a little bit, but we'll just I'll show you how I even that out. We'll put on some stuff on the antlers to kind of seal them, and then normally I don't, but I'm going to put Mop and Glow on the bone. If you guys watch White Bone Creations, he puts Mop and Glow on the antlers, horn, and bone, regardless of whatever he's doing. I haven't been doing that in the past. I'm going to do it on this skull just to kind of give it a layer of protection on the actual bone itself. But I have something different that a taxidermist recommended to me to put onto the moose antlers themselves. So anyways, let's let this thing dry, and we'll come back and do the whitening tomorrow probably. Okay, so our moose skull has dried overnight, and doesn't stink whatsoever. It looks pretty good actually, and but there's a few little spots that are slightly different color, like just around in here. I'm just going to even that out. And to actually bleach your skull, you don't use bleach, you actually use peroxide. And this is what you want here is 40%. And this is a hair product, peroxide developer. You can just buy straight liquid 40% peroxide and mix it with some powder. I think it's magnesium carbonate or something like that. Make a paste and put it on, but this stuff just comes straight in the bottle. You can get it on Amazon. It's getting harder and harder to get in Canada here anyways for some reason, but basically you just need that and a paintbrush to put it on the areas you want to lighten up, and just leave it on there for a bit and rinse it off. So I'm just going to show you guys the areas I'm going to be doing on the skull here, then we'll get started. Well, this is actually not that bad. Just going to do a little bit in there, bit around the pedicles. Don't get this stuff on the antler itself, you'll regret that later, but just the maceration process actually whitened this up really well. I didn't think we'd be able to get it this well, being that it was in the guy's shed for 5 years and the grease soaks into the bone. It's a little bit darker here, but not bad actually. So we'll just touch a few of those spots up, and then on the underside we'll even some of that color up, and then I'll just rinse this off and we'll be ready to hang it. Here you can see it. And when you're dealing with this high strength peroxide too, you should always wear gloves because this will burn your skin if you get some on you. But basically you just paint it on the spots that you want to lighten up, like you're painting. Alright, on this back side and underside it doesn't really matter because no one sees it, but I like to just have everything the same, whether you can see it or not. It's just a good practice to do the best job you can. Okay, after we let this sit, we'll rinse this off and let it dry. Then the next thing we'll do is some of these tips here, just from sitting in a shed, they actually got kind of rubbed. It's almost like a file. It's not a file, but you know what I mean, a little rough. And then we'll just take the brush and clean up with a little bit of soap and water, being careful not to touch the skull at all. Just any of the stuff that looks kind of like it maybe needs to get cleaned up a bit. Ideally you'd do this earlier, but you can see under here, not sure, it's been rubbed there, so that's just been from probably when it got shipped out here, just rubbing on something in his, when he moved. But what we'll do is we'll get a little bit of color on those. There's a few ways to do it. You can use like a walnut stain. I can't remember, there's another product that'll react with oxygen and stain it very close to the natural antler color as well. Can't remember what it's called offhand now. And you can also use coffee grounds to stain this as well. What I'm going to try on this one, actually, because I'm not going to be doing very much, just these little tips. I'll probably either use a little touch of walnut stain or just some coffee grounds to stain it, and then we'll be coating the antlers with like it's basically a furniture polish, but it's a very specific one, and the antlers will look shiny after you coat it, but after they dry they'll look very similar to what this does now, but they'll be sealed and won't let dust and things get in to make them dirty. So it's something that was recommended by a very good taxidermist, and I've found that over the years that's been the best way to do it. Okay, so the only thing left we got to do now on this project is just to make a little hanger. Now in some of the previous videos I had a little ring, I'd drill it through here and hang it, but this area isn't that big compared to a caribou or a bison, so I'm just going to make a homemade one out of wire. And basically this will just go around and we'll make a loop and tie it together here. Okay, so what you can see is I basically made the loop and twisted it together, circled the loop around so the tie-off point was in the side of the skull, and then just twisted this in a little loop for a hanging circle here. And we'll just go ahead and hang that up and see how it looks. Okay, so the last step we're going to spray the antlers with some of the Scott's liquid gold, and it'll look shiny at first, but in a couple weeks it'll dull out, and basically it'll help keep the color looking just like it is now, and it seals it, so if we're getting dust on there you can just easily dust it and things will come off. So we'll go ahead and do that now, and you just have to be careful, try to keep it off of the bone. That is what I do anyway. and I'll just spray some on a rag and wipe it on the antlers, and should be good. Alright, we finally got this moose done. This is the moose that was sitting in the shed for 5 years with the flesh still on it. We were able to get it macerated, degreased really well. This turned out way better than I originally had hopes for. The moose came out very white. We macerated it for quite a while, let it degrease for about 3 times what I normally would, just to give it the best chance possible of whitening up. Hit a couple spots with some peroxide just to try to even the color out, which turned out really well. We used the Scott's Liquid Gold to bring back the color on the antlers, and I think overall it turned out great. So anyways, if you guys got value from this video, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That'd be fantastic. We've got lots of these type of taxidermy projects that we're doing, and going to be posting some more. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.